sporting to fire on an unarmed opponent. I thought you were supposed to be good. Aren't you the good man? Come on, Decker. Show me what you're made of.
Proud of yourself, little man.
Welcome to Kermode Uncut. A couple of weeks ago, I was on the 5 Live film review show that I do with Simon Mayo, and we were talking about spectacle in cinema, and I started quoting the Rutger Hauer speech from the end of Blade Runner, in which Roy Batty says, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion." Obviously, his accent is much better than my rather naff Dutch accent, but it got me thinking once again about Blade Runner, which I love. Many years ago, I made a documentary called On the Edge of Blade Runner, in which we talked to many of the key participants, Ridley Scott and the screenwriters and the guys who did all these extraordinary special effects, Doug Trumbull, who of course is a great hero of mine. And I started thinking once again about seeing Blade Runner in a cinema, because many people who've seen it have only ever seen it on a small screen. As you probably know, Ridley Scott has recut the movie on several occasions. There was the original version with the voiceover, which I know some people like, and then there was a sort of director's cut, and then there was the final cut, which is his definitive version. Well, the BFI are doing a one-day re-release in cinemas of Blade Runner, the final cut, on December the 14th. This is to tie in with their Days of Fear and Wonder sci-fi series, which I've talked about before. And then next year, 2015, in April, they're going to do a nationwide re-release of the film, the final cut. So it's going to be opening in cinemas properly. But for one day, December the 14th, all around the country, you can go to the cinema and see Blade Runner, the final cut, on the big screen. And if you haven't seen it before, I would really advise you to check it out. I mean, it's a wonderfully intricate and complicated film. As you know, cult movie fans go over and over which version they prefer, all the little details of the story. Does it all add up together? Does it work? Is it actually a perfect rendering of the thoughts of Philip K. Dick, who wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? But it got me thinking as well about something that happened when we made On the Edge of Blade Runner. We got Ridley Scott to admit for the first time on camera that Deckard, the character played by Harrison Ford, who incidentally, there's been talk about him being involved in Blade Runner 2, the sequel which Ridley Scott is now working on, but whether or not he really was an android. In fact, here's the moment when Ridley Scott said to me what fans had always believed.
When Harrison's on his piano, looking at all the photographs and wondering who these people are and what they're after, he's drinking, he's a bit drunk there, and as he drinks, you go off into the unicorn, so it's a reverie. And that was the only reference right there to this abstract image, which is a unicorn. Because at the end of it, he comes out of his thought process. And that never occurs again till the end of the movie. Because when he comes in that apartment, he thinks Eddie's gone in there and killed her, because they know where she is. And when they come out, there it is. Looks like the unicorn.
And it means?
That he's a replicant.
Now, interestingly, not everyone buys the Deckard as an android story. One of the other things that happened in the documentary is we got the two writers together, Hampton Fancher and David Webb Peoples, who had written the script and worked on it separately. They hadn't actually sort of collaborated. The script had been going back and forth between them. And I asked them, whose idea was it that Deckard is an android? Because of course it's not there in the novel at all. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The hero is certainly not an android. And both writers ended up crediting the other with it. And it turned out that the whole idea had come out of a misapprehension. One of them had written a line in which Deckard had wondered about Rachel's end date, about how long she had as an android. And then he'd said, and what of my maker? What of my end date? Talking actually in spiritual terms. And the other writer had read that and thought, oh my word, he's an android. And had then somehow passed this on to Ridley Scott, who went, that's a brilliant idea. So between the three of them, they decided that Deckard was an android, although none of them actually thought that's what they were saying in the first place. Now, obviously, in the original version where there's the voiceover, Deckard isn't an android, and actually he's a much more boring character for it. Go see Blade Runner: The Final Cut in cinemas. Check out my documentary if you can. I think it's probably out there online somewhere. And let me know what you think is the key to the mystery of Blade Runner, and why, after all these years, it still excites such interest in fans.
Too bad she won't live.